Let us call this meeting to order. And if the clerk can please call the roll.
Eric?
Here.
Kurt?
Here.
Jeff? Nancy?
Yes.
Bob?
Here.
Jay?
Here.
Cindy?
Here.
Thank you.
And we have a full dais today. If you would please rise for the voluntary Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And first order of business is approval of the minutes for September 18th, 2017. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Member Stanton Greger, seconded by Member Lynn to approve the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And those pass. Next order of business is the amendment and approval of meeting agenda. Are there any amendments to today's agenda? Do we have a motion to approve today's agenda?
I'll second that.
Moved by Member Strand, seconded by Member Walhuter to approve today's meeting agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Moving on to public hearings. There are none today, and there are no bid awards. So the next item on the agenda is visitors' views related to the agenda. And it looks like we have a couple people in the audience. Brian, why don't you come up?
Mayor and members of the Assembly, I'm Brian Lynch. I'm here today representing the Salmon Beyond Borders campaign, and I also would like to introduce Melanie Brown, who's also in the audience today. We're here today, and we have a presentation tonight in the library from 5:30 to 7:30, and everybody's invited. I want to thank the Assembly and Councils for your continued support on this issue. Petersburg has really been on the forefront of this issue pretty much from the beginning, and I don't know how many times I've been up here talking about it. It's like, a bad penny coming back again, but I just, on this one too, I want to address the resolution 2017-18, which is item 15C on the agenda. First of all, I want to reiterate we are not anti-mining. Get that straight, considering almost everything we do and use on a daily basis has something contributed by mining, whether you're driving a car, using your cell phone, it doesn't matter. We just want the BC transboundary mines to be developed correctly and safely so that those of us downstream are not harmed and can be compensated if harm does occur. This resolution is basically an update of past resolutions and letters that you've submitted to our congressional delegation and our state administration. You're updating a few things since your last resolution, not your last letter. We have a new federal administration. The Red Chris mine on the Stikine was approved in its full production, as is the Bruce Jack mine on the Unic River. And we also had the BC Auditor General's report in May 2016, which is after your actual last election. A couple of the new items here in recital number 9, whereas number 9, it covers the BC Auditor General's report of May 2016, and that's pretty significant finding that she had. He said, we found almost every one of our expectations for a robust compliance and enforcement program within the Ministry of Energy and Mines and the Ministry of the Environment were not met. We found major gaps in resources, planning, and tools. As a result, monitoring and inspections of mines were inadequate to ensure mine operators complied with the requirements. The ministries have not publicly disclosed the limitations with their compliance and enforcement programs, increasing environmental risks, and government's ability to protect the environment. The Ministry of Energy and Mines and Environment Compliance and Enforcement activities of the mining sector are inadequate to protect the province from significant environmental risks. If it's inadequate to prevent the province from environmental risks, it's definitely inadequate to protect us from environmental risks. And I've said this before, I think every time I've been up here, that yeah, this is an environmental issue, but it's definitely an economic issue. Something happens up there, we could be directly harmed, could cause great disruption in salmon fishing, also, crab fishing in the Stikine Flats, and it has a potential to even affect fisheries across the Gulf and into the Bering Sea. So it could be much more horrendous than just its effect on salmon. 10th recital has to do with the Statement of Cooperation and Protection of the Transboundary Waters that was signed off on in October 2016. We've received some criticism from some sectors that the SOC is sufficient and that we are not supportive and even disrespectful of Lieutenant Governor's efforts in this regard. However, that simply is not true. The SOC was a good step forward, but cannot provide for enforceable regulations or financial assurances in case of contamination or mining disaster. Only the federal government has that authority under the Boundary Waters Treaty. Under Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution, states are not even allowed to go into treaties with a foreign nation and set up any sort of enforceable actions, even within the Boundary Waters Treaty, or financial compensations or assurances would essentially be just that. So we have to have the federal government involved in this because it is a federal to federal, and it is an international issue, and so they have to be involved with this. That's not to say that the state would not be obviously directly involved, but we need the authority of the federal government on both sides of the border. This resolution also doesn't really focus on the IJC, but rather is seeking federal engagement in this issue. We still support an IJC reference for this mining development, but the IJC is, I shouldn't just say it's just one tool, it's a very significant tool and one we still very much support. But first we need to see the federal government to engage in this. We are going around on the Southeast tours right now. I haven't been, but members of the campaign have been to Ketchikan, Sitka. Melanie and I were in Wrangell last week. We got resolutions out of all those communities, very similar to this one that you have in front of you. There was one that was not passed at the time in Juneau. It's kind of interesting why that didn't pass, because there was one member of the mining industry that they don't believe that the Boundary Waters Treaty applies to these transboundary rivers, and it doesn't apply to rivers that flow directly across the international boundary, and that it excludes from its authorities those waters that cross the borders. The treaty is meant for waters that lay parallel to borders such as the Great Lakes. That assertion is absolutely false. In the preliminary article for the Boundary Waters Treaty, while it is somewhat in legalese, when you first read it, it just kind of appears that it does that. Just like any legal document, you get rid of a couple of dependent clauses and you find Waldo. And also the Article 4 explicitly addresses rivers such as the Transboundary River. And I actually have the memo that was submitted to the Juneau Assembly on this issue if you want to see it. But basically, the same memo or testimony that they had here in front of the Juneau Assembly was the same one that they gave during testimony for House Joint Resolution 9, which is the legislative version of seeking federal engagement. He was mistaken on that one. In fact, he was corrected right away, right after he stated it. Well, in this case, he's mistaken again. So, mistaken once, lying twice. They know better. They know better. I'm just saying it does apply to these rivers. Also, a concern that they have, some have, is that this is federal overreach, having the federal government involved. It's kind of interesting that they bring that up, because federal engagement, as I stated earlier, is absolutely necessary, and I find it interesting that our entire congressional delegation is behind this effort, and I think every one of them, at one time or another, has made some negative comment on federal overreach and other issues, and they're all behind this one, and are really encouraging the state administration to move ahead with that. Anyway, that's what I have for you today. I urge you to pass this resolution and move forward. And again, I'll say that we have this reception tonight from 5:30 to 7:30 in the public library, and where we'll be giving further updates on our activities and what we're doing now. Anyway, thank you.
All right, thank you.
We have a quick question.
Yeah.
Was there any more movement by the State Department on this issue? Have you heard anything recently?
Thank you. That's exactly what we're doing here. We're trying to get all Southeast communities to send this to the new administration. That's what we're trying to do here, right? It hasn't. We have contacted the State Department. Their response, not just under this administration, but the prior federal administration, basically they want to see. They actually need our state administration to explicitly request their involvement. So they're really hesitant to do that, even though our congressional delegation is pushing this, is all in favor of it. They want to see our state administration explicitly ask for this before they take any sort of action. They need the state on board, 100% on board, before they will do it. That's what our our understanding is, that they need that.
Well, there's been no change other than that.
Yeah, that's what this is about. And the mayor sent a letter to the administration on this. Wrangell is going to take up a letter like that, I believe, in their next assembly meeting. And so that is exactly what we're trying to do here. It's become rather frustrating. It seems like I'm up here in front of you guys about once a month, whatever, trying to do this. But it's just we have to keep the pressure on to get this done.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And Wrangell actually passed the resolution at the last meeting.
Wrangell?
Yes.
Yes, Wrangell did pass that resolution. Yeah. Thank you, Julie.
Are there any other visitors' views related to the agenda? Seeing none, are there any visitors' views unrelated to the agenda? And seeing none, the next item is board, commission, and committee reports, and there were none filed. The next item on our agenda is a consent agenda item, acceptance of an Alaska Division of Homeland Security grant in the amount of $127,280. The Petersburg Borough has received a grant from the Alaska Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management in the amount of $127,280 to be used to partially fund the purchase of public safety portable radios, and that's $97,750, which will ensure P25 compliance and interoperability. Will provide for the purchase and installation of a server, storage array, and fiber optic cable for the harbor security surveillance system. That's $26,180, and also the purchase of 2 ice rescue suits and 1 ice rescue kit to the tune of $3,350. And
Awesome.
I'll move to accept this, or approve this.
Second.
it's been moved by Member Strand, seconded by Member Stanton Greger to approve the acceptance of the Alaska Division of Homeland Security grant in the amount of $127,280. And I guess go ahead and call the roll.
Okay. Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes,
Jeff?
Yes.
and that's approved unanimously. The next item on the agenda is report of other officers. There are none filed, and that brings us up to the mayor's report. And the first item is municipal elections. Election day is tomorrow, October 3rd, 2017. Voting will be available in the activity room of the community center from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Please exercise your right as a Petersburg Borough resident to have a say in our local government by voting. And then the Alaska Association of Harbor Masters and Port Administrators is meeting here in Petersburg. We're this year's host for the conference that runs from October 2nd through the 6th, which will bring approximately 80 attendees to our community. Please be sure to welcome our visitors, and I will be giving a welcome message at tomorrow's meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning, and hopefully I'll be awake. The Southern Southeast Regional Aquaculture Association will also hold their regular board meeting in Petersburg on Friday, October 27th in the Assembly Chambers of the Municipal Building. A public reception will be held on Thursday, October 26th at the Sons of Norway Hall from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And finally, I attended Southeast Conference, and I was going to type up some notes to hand out to Assembly members, and I just finally got my act together this morning and got some, so I will read through just a couple highlights of the meeting. We heard some presentations on a number of topics, including timber, mining, workforce training, seafood processing, the state's economy and trends, and the Alaska Marine Highway System. The Alaska Marine Highway System Work Group issued a draft report, and you may have heard about it on the radio, calling for the ferry to be managed by a public corporation with forward funding. This would allow the ferry to publish its schedule a year out to help visitors in travel planning. However, Senator Stedman spoke afterwards saying forward funding wasn't likely, and due to how DOT's budget was handled this year, the ferry is currently scheduled to run out of funds in April. So I encourage you, if you have an interest in the ferry, in contacting your legislators and letting them know how you feel about that. Julie Decker from Wrangell spoke to seafood and ocean products sector and efforts to develop mariculture industries around the state. The U.S. Department of Energy is helping fund efficient seaweed harvesting, and this is a project that's to develop biofuel. So they're harvesting kelp for biofuel and for other products. And Senators Stevens and Ortiz have introduced 2 mariculture bills to the legislature. Many new applications are coming in from around the state, and we heard kelp is the new kale. Joe Plush of Trident noted that Russia has received a sustainability designation, which was Alaska's competitive edge. Now it competes marketing-wise with Alaska products, with American products. The seafood industry value is $4.2 billion, of which $2 billion is Bering Sea pollock. We also heard about Sea Alaska Trails program, teaching rural youth skills such as trails construction, stream surveys, and archaeology site work. And Member Castro says he's been involved with that project in Cake. It sounds like a really good program. There were also presentations about other workforce development programs, cruise ship visitation trends, and partnerships between DNR and the Forest Service to implement timber sales in Southeast Alaska, particularly on Kosciuszko Island, among other topics. During the meeting, I was appointed to the Southeast Conference Board and was asked if I wanted to participate in an arts economy subcommittee, and there'll be more on that later. And then there were some interesting regional trends of note, including that our Southeast population decreased slightly in 2016 by about 1%. Our overall labor force lost 434 jobs for a 1% loss. However, state government lost 565 jobs for about a 10% decrease. Passenger arrivals increased by 8%, or 110,000 people, and total pounds of seafood landed was down by 77 million pounds for a 26% decrease. Despite all that, most Southeast Alaska business leaders say they expect their own businesses and industries to remain stable and to improve in the coming year, which was something that seemed a little counterintuitive, but it's good to hear. So just a little recap from Southeast Conference. So moving on
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I just want to state that when I talked to Glorianne, a correction on the amount of attendees has risen to 94.
Oh, very good.
Signed up people, so we'll have 94 people here, for the Southeast the Harbor Masters.
And we would encourage any organization to consider inviting their groups, especially statewide or nationwide groups, to have conferences here. It's certainly an economic engine for Petersburg. Thank you. Moving on to the manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The library has been awarded a Rasmussen grant for the construction of a story pole in front of the library. It will be a non-traditional pole inspired by nursery rhymes and carved by master Klinglet carver Tommy Joseph from Sitka. 35% of the funding for the project came from the Rasmussen Foundation. The remainder is from private donations specifically to the library. Installation is tentatively scheduled for late spring 2018. The Centennial Park signs have been installed. In addition to the trailhead signs at the top and the bottom, there was also an interpretive sign commemorating the site as the home of early pioneers Harold and Magda Hill. Kurt, did I get anywhere near close to that?
I'm
Sorry, I apologize for we and thank you. Acknowledging that the land for Centennial Park was given by Elder and Polly Lee in 2010 in honor of Petersburg Centennial. The lighting RFP for the Aquatic Center is due October 5th. This is to replace the lights with something that will be humidity-proof and also increase the lighting in the pool area to make it a lot brighter for folks. We have a couple of addendums we've had to put out to match up with timing. Evidently, lighting fixtures of this type in some cases have up to a 12-week delay from the time you pick them to the time you can actually get them. So this will likely be a project that will not really start until really late spring, and may even push it into the summer break when the kids are out of school. We'll see, but that's part of something we're working on. And thanks to Ira, who installed the new basketball scoreboard. Ryan and 3 volunteers attended the Alaska State Firefighters Association Fire Conference in Sitka, September 25th through the 30th. Our junior firefighter program has 9 students. I believe they would accept more if people are still interested. Chief Swihart and Captain Hamilton met with the Alaska Supreme Court Chief Justice Craig Stowers on 21st of September regarding safety and security at the courthouse. Magistrate Judge Desi Burrell, Clerk Brandy Boggs, Area Court Administrators, and Trooper Cody Quister also attended. CCAD board meeting is scheduled for October 6, 2017 in Juneau. Captain Hamilton and Chief Swihart will attend. Captain Hamilton has been appointed to the board. Chief Swihart will attend the Local Emergency Planning Commission, or LEPC, meeting in Anchorage in mid-October. For those of you who haven't noticed, Power and Light has temporarily relocated to the Public Works building while renovations are underway, and those renovations have started. They're in the kind of tear-down phase at this point, and Rainforest Contracting is mobilized and will actually start remodeling in probably another couple of weeks once they get the demo out of the way. Staff is, as you've heard, in the harbor is finalizing the conference details scheduled for this week. Thanks to all the businesses, community members who've been so helpful in preparing for the event. So far, we have approximately 94 attendees, and are hearing the hotels and B&Bs are full. Public Works successfully placed a lift of surfacing on the Mountain View Manor assisted living parking lot. The work will make the area much safer for pedestrians in the wintertime. The crew will also attempt to fix some drainage issues associated with the elderly housing carport area. Huge thank to Public Works from the Manor for all the work they've done up there. Property taxes are due today in the office, October 2nd by 5 p.m. That is a hard deadline, so you definitely need to get it in here if you still need to pay your property taxes. Jody has arranged to get the State Assistant Assessor Ron Brown to schedule a Board of Equalization training for the Assembly this winter. Since the state has cut much of their travel budget, they're only available to do the meeting by teleconference. Most likely we'll do that in March in this room here. Carl attended the Southeast Conference annual meeting in Haines to meet with the board of CSWA. And the local scrap metal and junk car roundup is going well. As of September 26th, we have taken in 337,000 pounds of metal from the community, including 15 cars. Staff in sanitation is working on the installation of a new used oil burner before winter, which will now include replacement of the exhaust staff that is badly corroded. The water staff recently pigged their raw water line from Cabin Creek to the treatment plant. All went well with this operation to clean the pipeline and maintain the design flows to the treatment plant. During recent rain events, wastewater staff investigated areas suspected of inflow and infiltration into the sewer system and located several significant issues to fix, some of which have already been addressed. If we're able to cut down some of that inflow, it actually saves us money, because anything that goes into the wastewater plant we have to treat and so there's an expense associated with that. So reduces cost to pump it as well as treat it if we can find those places and correct them. State of Alaska has notified us that they have adopted the newer versions of the Uniform Building Codes. Within Service Area 1, Petersburg is now enforcing the 2012 versions of the International Building Code, International Residential Code, International Fire Code, Uniform Plumbing Code, International Mechanical Code, and the 2014 National Electric Code. For more information, please contact Joe Bertagnoli, our Borough Building official. And motor pool staff performed a repair on the Wrangell bucket truck that Power and Light was borrowing. Wrangell Power and Light is happy with the arrangement, is willing to loan the taller-reaching truck as needed by Petersburg. This is very much appreciated by the department and especially the line crew. Public Works is still hoping to accomplish the Pump Station 7 force main installation prior to winter. And thanks to PIA, who graciously offered enrollment into a local motor grading class that was being held for their personnel. Training is free and is being put on the Alaska Tribal Transportation Assistance. 2 Public Works staff members are able to attend. And again, thanks to PIA for this opportunity. And Reed Brothers Construction successfully completed the crushing of all the salvaged asphalt material at the quarry. The contractor did an excellent job, and the material will be very useful for road servicing next year. So,
Any questions or discussion? Go ahead, Kurt.
This is for Carl. Hey, Carl, when is the metal roundup deadline?
The final date for the metal roundup will be October 31st.
Okay, somebody asked me that question.
Got one more month, so any junk cars or spare metal you got laying around, now's the time to bring it up to landfill.
You'll be seeing me.
Go ahead, Bob.
Question on the electrical building, with the demolition, have we uncovered anything that we hadn't expected that's going to cost us more money?
Yes and no. We don't know the extent of cost yet. There's some concerns about the ceiling grid and how we're going to either replace it or use existing. We found 2 offices that didn't include replacing very, very old carpet. So we kind of want that done. This is the time to do it. Carl, going to get everything?
That's essentially it. There were some things that were some compromises in the design phase that to save money that were implemented, and so now we're looking at if they really make a whole lot of sense to not renovate some of these areas. So we're in the process of getting some pricing from the contractor, and if that goes well, we'll probably have some changes for the assembly to consider.
Thank you.
All right.
I have one question.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
So is the trading back and forth of vehicles between Wrangell and Petersburg, is that something that happens often?
That's actually a better question for Scott. I think maybe once a year.
Like, try to get it in the fall when the leaves or whenever they can get it. But once a year we'll get it and take care of the trees we can't reach with our bucket and danger trees. But it works pretty good. They're really good about borrowing it to us.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Yep. Oh, thank you.
All right. Moving on to unfinished business, and at this time there is none. So we will approach new business, and the first item is Ordinance 17-13, an ordinance providing for the repeal of Chapter 3.16 of the Code of the former City of Petersburg. And this is cleaning up our borough ordinances now that we have become a borough and we are no longer a city. Ordinance 2017-13, if adopted, will repeal Chapter 3.16, Information Technology Department of the Municipal Code of the former City of Petersburg. This chapter is not needed in the Petersburg Borough Municipal Code. And do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Member Mucci and seconded by Member Castro that we approve Ordinance 2017-13. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk call the roll?
Jay,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Nancy.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that is approved unanimously. Moving on to item B, ordinance 17-14, an ordinance providing for Chapter 3.08 of the Municipal Code entitled Assembly and Mayor, updating current language to reflect borough incorporation. Ordinance 2017-14 updates Municipal Code Chapter 3.08, Assembly and Mayor from City Code to Borough Code, provides for duties and guidelines for the mayor and assembly members and guidelines for assembly meetings, and changes the quorum requirements to allow for participation by teleconference to count towards establishing a quorum as long as a minimum of 2 assembly members are physically present for the meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Member Lynn, seconded by Member Stanton Grager, that we approve ordinance 2017-14. Is there any discussion? Member Castro.
Yeah, I like the idea about having, being able to keep having a quorum, be able to be productive. My only reservation was our AV system. I see over here now that we have newer ones. Before, as you guys know, it was just really tough to be able to hear and to understand, fully comprehend everything that was going on at the meeting. So I think that was a limitation.
I agree, and we are actually working on, with Joe's, Vic Nicky's help, KFSK's help, setting up maybe using Skype or GoToMeeting. Right now we're going the Skype route, because you can Skype without having a face there as well. It could be just the voice, and if we can do that, it actually integrates right into our microphone system, our recording system, so the person on the line can hear every bit as well as we can in the room.
Excellent.
So, working on it.
Yes, Nancy.
I cannot support 2 assembly members in present. It's presently 4, and that's the quorum. And the reason for that is if a phone feed or Skype feed gets lost, there's still a quorum here. If somebody's out fishing or hauling, packing, and they disconnect, there won't be a quorum or even close to a quorum with 2 people. I think it should stay at 4.
And is that correct? My understanding from reading this is that the 2 members go towards establishing a quorum, but they do not form the quorum.
But they do if there's 2 people calling in.
But if the feed is dropped, you no longer have the quorum.
That's correct. So the meeting would have to stop.
That's true.
No decisions could be made from that point forward.
I have trouble with that. It's not going to save any time. It also feels to me like it would increase the opportunities for abuse. I cannot support 2 members in person.
Member Stanton Grager.
I think I have to echo some comments of both Castro and Strand. I like the simplicity of the technology thing. I can think of times when it'd be nicer just to get some tidying up borough business done, or it'd be 2 people calling in wouldn't be a big deal. The flip side of that same coin, I have to echo what Member Strand said about, okay, so say someone's on vacation, they Skype in from the hotel, let's say the internet connection is junk at this Motel 6 or whatever, and they get cut off. You're wasting a lot of people's time by having to adjourn a meeting halfway through. Suddenly it's doing the exact opposite of what our goal was in terms of efficiency. I think I won't be able to vote for this as it reads. Another reason is I think it's important for the public trust, the idea of having someone wants to actually sit and talk with us before a meeting or after a meeting. Maybe I'm making an assumption here, but I think it feels good to have 4 physical bodies here we can chat with or get FaceTime with about an issue. I think it's fair to the public. So I'm kind of Member Strand on that. I can't vote for it as it is right now.
I've been on now for a few years. We really haven't had a problem until, I think, this summer. Am I right, Debbie, of getting
Well,
a
that's
quorum?
true. It's not very often, yes, that it's a problem for us. That is true. We do have other boards and commissions that definitely have
Right, and I don't
issues.
disagree that maybe we need to look at some other boards and so forth, but I think I'm the same place that the other members that talked are, is that I really do believe there's a trust factor here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it makes a difference to have 4 people on this STOS and to have a quorum for a meeting.
Anyone else or an amendment?
Actually, I'd like to clarify this with So as it's written right now, does this impact, let's say, planning and zoning or the hospital?
Yes, it does. Our charter basically says planning and zoning and the hospital boards follow the same rules the assembly does for quorum, establishing a quorum.
Okay, I'm just thinking out loud here, and I don't mean to speak out of turn for the planning and zoning or the hospital board, but I know they've had problems with maintaining a regular quorum. In that setting, I think I could help a lot. So maybe I would amend this to include planning and zoning and hospital board, but not the assembly?
Well, I'll tell you what.
Please do.
Before we do the amendment, let me double check to make sure that it is not something the charter needs to be changed, because of course that has to go before the voters.
Very different.
So wouldn't do us any good. So before the second reading, I will have an answer on that, okay?
Got it.
So if you pass it this time as it is, it's just the first reading, and at the next meeting I will be able to tell you what will need to change in order for it to be allowed in other boards and commissions, but not on the assembly.
Understood. So to follow up with the W then, in that case then, I'm going to be pushing this on to a second reading so I can get some of these questions I want answered and can proceed accordingly. Thank you.
That's good. You bet. Nancy?
If I were to vote no, does that kill it before the second reading, or is there still a second reading?
If enough people vote in favor, it would not kill it.
Okay. Because I'm not ever going to vote for this.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk call the roll?
Jay?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes, just so we can get more information on the second meeting.
Nancy?
No.
All right. And that passes 6-1 with Member Strand voting no. Moving on to Resolution 2017-18, a resolution of the Petersburg Borough in support of the enforcement of the Boundary Waters Treaty in the Southeast Alaska, Northwest British Columbia Trans-Boundary Region. Resolution 2017-18 supports enforcement of the Boundary Waters Treaty in the Southeast Alaska, British Columbia Trans-Boundary Watersheds. If approved, this resolution will be sent to our state and federal officials along with resolutions from our neighbors and other Southeast communities. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
It's been moved by Member Walhuter and seconded by Member Mucci to approve Resolution 2017-18. Is there any discussion? Yes.
I wanted to thank Salmon Beyond Borders and all other relevant parties for their continued efforts to protect both our environment and the economics of Petersburg. It's a good resolution, and I'll definitely be voting for it.
Yes, Bob.
One of the things that we don't have in here that I really think needs to be added relates to water quality. We can talk about all kinds of enforceable protections and so forth, but if we don't have a baseline from which to be able to argue from or go to court with, we've not gained anything. So in that respect, I would like to make a motion to add to the resolution. I'm on the very last page, therefore it be resolved. I'm third line down where it talks about, we say that develop binding and enforceable protections and financial assurances. I would add after enforceable protections, including long-term water quality monitoring.
Is that a motion, Bob?
That's a motion I have on the deal.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we add long-term water quality monitoring to the final paragraph of the resolution. And there's also one clerical change that needs to be made, and that's the date is incorrect, and that's been noted. Is there any discussion on the amendment?
Would it be inappropriate to ask the person that put forth this amendment if that was acceptable to them? Is that acceptable? Yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Can we have a roll call on the amendment?
Yes. Nancy?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Eric.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the amendment passes unanimously. So we will add long-term water quality monitoring to the resolution. Is there any discussion on the resolution itself? Hearing none, will the clerk call a roll?
Kurt,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Resolution 2017-18, a resolution of the Petersburg Borough in support of the enforcement of the Boundary Waters Treaty in the Southeast Alaska Northwest British Columbia Transboundary Region, passes unanimously. The next item on our agenda is 17-241, Petersburg Volunteer Firefighter Search and Rescue and Emergency Medical Services Officer Stipend Increase. With the exception of Fire EMS Director Dixon and Fire Marshal Weldy, Petersburg's firefighters, emergency medical technicians, and search and rescue personnel volunteer their time and efforts. Those volunteers who accept an officer role in their group are paid a monthly stipend. Officer stipends began in July of 2002 and have not increased since then. Volunteer Fire Chief Weldy has requested an increase to the officer stipends, excluding the stipend for Fire Chief, of $20 per month per officer, for a total annual increase of $3,120. This increase is accounted for in the current FY 2018 budget, and Manager Giesbrecht is recommending approval of this request. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Member Strand, seconded by Member Castro, that we approve 17-241. Is there any discussion?
I was just curious. Oh, please, I'm sorry. If you had your hand up, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, just without these leaders in this department, we wouldn't have a functioning unit. They take extra time out of their schedules in order to prepare drills and trainings, and they should be better compensated for everything that they put forward. It's something that we look forward to. You know, you take it for granted when you're on the department and you go to a drill and then everything's set up, and then you can leave afterwards, and there's just a lot of extra behind-the-scenes work that goes on, and I appreciate everything they do.
All right. Yeah.
The question I had for Sandy is, Sandy, how many officers does this entail? I mean, I did math, but I just didn't take the time.
I think there's 14.
14, and how does that break down in the different departments like EMS and fire?
So there's 14 total, one actual fire chief. There are 2 assistant fire chiefs, so between the 3 of them, they cover all the calls. There's 2 fire captains, 3 fire lieutenants, 1 SAR captain, 2 SAR lieutenants, 1 EMS captain, 2 EMS lieutenants. So for that total, not all of the positions are filled at this time, and it's based on the number of volunteers that we have. So we budget for the whole gamut, but not all of them are filled. So people don't get paid then if the position's not filled.
Okay, so no, this is just an added stipend per month, so it's kind of like a salary in a sense. So what is that? So we're increasing them $20 a month. So what are they getting paid now?
Should have left.
This is for the public's knowledge and
That's
mine
okay.
too.
So currently per month, do you want the fire chief? He's not changing.
Yeah, no.
So currently per month, he gets $615 a month. That includes $100 for car allowance and then the stipend. The assistant chiefs get paid $154.50 per month. Fire captains, $83.34. And that goes through lieutenant as well. So then the increase, raising that $20 a month, the fire chief would stay the same at $615. The assistant chiefs, $174.50. And then fire captains, $103.34, lieutenants as well, $103.34.
Okay, yeah, I have to agree with Assembly Member Castro. You know, it's really important. I mean, it may not seem important until you need them, and then it's priceless. All right, thank you.
Sure. And I just wanted to add, besides training, they respond to the calls, they take the leadership roles, and have to make those tough decisions as well. So.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Kurt,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Eric.
Yes.
Thank you.
And 17-241, Petersburg Volunteer Firefighter Search and Rescue and Emergency Medical Services Officer Stipend Increase is approved unanimously. The next item on the agenda is 17-245, Appointment of 2017 Municipal Election Officials and setting date and time for election certification meeting. Clerk Thompson requests appointment of Mary Leonard, Kathy O'Rear, and Erica Warhatch as election officials for the October 3rd, 2017 municipal election and requests the Assembly set a date and time to canvass the election. Canvass of the election must take place no later than Tuesday, October 10th. A suggested date and time for the canvass meeting is Friday, October 6th, 2017 at 9 a.m. And I need a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved by Member Strand, seconded by Member Michi, that we approve 17-245. Is there any discussion?
I have one question.
Yeah.
How do you become an municipal election official?
Well, a few years ago, there was a campaign kind of to gather people, so we had a few names and did some training. And over the last couple of years, that number of people has dwindled. People haven't been available. Plus, when the state does their elections here and the national elections, there's a whole other group of people, so I hate to draw from them when they're busy. But anyway, kind of by word of mouth right now. Next year, because of my difficulty in securing enough people, I felt anyway, so to where people wouldn't have to work a 12-hour shift, so we will all be working a 12-hour shift. I will campaign again next year. I will put out an ad and ask for volunteers to come in and get a new list of names.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
And how much time is the training ahead of time?
Oh, I think it took us this year not quite an hour and a half. Just basically go over the rules of, what's allowed and what's not, and each position on election day, there's a position that you actually take over and function, and we switch, so we go over what each position does.
All right. Well, hearing no more discussion, will you please... Oh, I'm sorry, Nancy, go ahead.
When will the certification take place?
We're proposing Friday, October 6th at 9 a.m.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Will the clerk please call a roll?
Nancy?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes. And 17-245, appointment of 2017 municipal election officials and setting the date and time for the election certification meeting passes. And I want to thank all the people who agreed to be election officials this year. The next item on our agenda is communications. Does anybody have any communications that they would like to report? The only things that I wanted to mention were that the governor did just send out a transboundary river letter and talked a little bit about ongoing efforts, so our resolution is timely. And also I wanted to give him some credit for tracking on some public safety issues. He was here and toured the municipal building this week to see the remodel and was asking the chief about some requests that we've made for public safety items, and I was impressed that he had looked that up ahead of time to be on top of that. And then also the Norwegian ambassador was here in town and spoke at the school and for the public at the Sons of Norway on changes in the Arctic, and that was a pretty interesting presentation, and I appreciate that. Moving on to assembly discussion items. Are there any recognitions? Jay.
I would like to recognize the people of Petersburg who are going to turn out tomorrow in huge numbers to vote in our local election. It's at the end of the day, 9 p.m., when The radio will be announcing the unofficial results, at which point, if you voted, you have bought yourself a ticket to either celebrate or complain, which you don't get if you haven't voted. So I thank everyone in advance for voting so they've bought that ticket for either, again, complaining or celebrating. Thanks.
Well stated. Anyone else? Any other recognitions? Yes.
I'd like to recognize the Petersburg girls cross-country team for sweeping regionals with the top 5 best times, and wish them luck at state.
All right. And then I also wanted to recognize the school district for taking the time to show the movie Screenagers, which I would recommend going to see. It's also showing tonight and tomorrow night, I believe, about student use of electronics and the challenges and complications with that, but it doesn't just speak to teenagers. There's some good messages there for adults as well. So I went to see that last night. There was a good discussion afterwards, and I would recommend that to other folks as well. And then the other item is that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I wanted to note that. So at this point, I need a motion to move into executive session.
Harvey's got some.
Yeah.
I know I'm out of order, but I wonder if there's something, a question I could ask. I should have been here for item 8, but I failed.
And item 8 is,
Is abuse unrelated to agenda?
does anyone object?
Nope.
All right, come on up.
Go for it, Harvey.
Well, it's relative to a ballot issue that we face tomorrow about off-road.
State your name in the mic.
On-road, about off-road vehicles.
Can you
being
state your
on-road.
name into the microphone for the people on the radio?
Okay. So, will they be required if that...
Can you state your name?
Okay, Harvey Gilliland.
Thank you.
What else?
That's it.
That's it. Mhm.
Sorry. Should that be approved, will those vehicles be required to have stoplights, turn signals, and what have you, like other vehicles? I haven't heard that discussed at all, but it seems like it should be required. Is that so? Do you know?
Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, just curious. Thank you.
No, thank you.
In which case, I'd move that we adjourn to executive session.
I'll second that.
Okay, can I ask
Say what
just
it's
something
for.
about the executive session before we, has that motion passed?
No, we haven't voted.
Okay, so are we just adjourning into executive session, or are we adjourning into executive session to discuss a matter?
Yeah, I phrased that poorly, Jeff. What I meant to say was, I would move that we adjourn to executive session to discuss the status of and strategy with respect to the ongoing Petersburg Municipal Employees Association negotiations and to discuss Manager Giesbrecht's evaluation.
So when we go into executive session to talk about how the negotiations are coming, are we going to come out of those executive sessions and then reconvene into executive session to talk about Manager Giesbrecht's evaluation?
We will not adjourn and reconvene. It will be one executive session, but the first executive session will be about the negotiations, and then when that's over, anyone that shouldn't be in the room will leave.
Okay.
And then we will continue with our executive session for the manager's evaluation.
Okay.
And then we will come out of executive session, take any action if the assembly decides to, and adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. So it's been moved and seconded that we go into executive session.
So just to clarify what Debbie said and to, assure people that we will not make any decisions in executive session without bringing it before the public.
That's correct. All right, I'll take one more run at this. All those in favor of moving into executive session, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. 5-minute break, and we'll convene to executive session.
Bring it back.